How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Steven Talks, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite movies. I love movies. I've always loved movies. Other than my beautiful wife, movies are the love of my life. They are probably one of the biggest aspects of my personality and just who I am. Ever since I was a kid, I've been enamored with movies. I was never big on sports, even though I tried. I do love reading, and I absolutely love music, but movies, that was the thing. I loved going to the theater to see a new movie. I loved hopping in the car with my family and going to rent a movie. Anything movie related. I was on board with 100%. So that has lasted all the way up until this very second here. I love discovering movies I've never seen before. I love the ones that just kind of come out of nowhere, and when they're over, you're giddy with excitement because there was something about that movie that just moved you or it made you think. I love them. So today I'm going to talk about just a few of my favorite movies, just to give you an idea of the movies that I genuinely love. Now, I just want to say that there are hundreds of movies out there that I love with my entire heart. And it pains me that I can't just squeeze them all into like one video. But these are the ones that are the biggies, the ones that really, I think, are the ones that I would choose. So, first and foremost, I'm going to go with my favorite movie of all time. And that's The Lost Boys. I've seen this movie countless times. I just to date me, like I remember renting this movie from a grocery store in my hometown. That's right. Mouse, stop clawing the furniture. Mouse is my cat. No, The Lost Boys. There's just something about it, man. There's just something about the feeling of this movie. The cast is incredible. The soundtrack is incredible. The look of the movie is amazing. A lot of people don't realize that the guy that was the cinematographer for The Lost Boys, he was the same guy that Scorsese used to shoot Taxi Driver. He did countless other films where he just gave them a look that was just as much of a personality as the movie, as the script itself. And funny enough, no one had ever asked him to do a horror movie. And so when they came to him about The Lost Boys, like, do you want to help us shoot this movie about teenage vampires? He was like, yes. Like, hell yes. Sign me up for that. And he shot the hell out of that movie. Like, The Lost Boys looks amazing. Like, their use of color and lighting in that movie, it shouldn't look as good as it does, But anyway, I love this movie. I tell people all the time, like, I've seen it well over 100 times in my life, and I would gladly watch it 100 more. So, yeah, the biggie is The Lost Boys. Now, the next movie, I read about it in a magazine. I was in high school, and I was in the school library, and I was leafing through probably something like Entertainment Weekly or Premiere Magazine, and there was this huge article about this movie that was just taking Britain by storm. It was influencing fashion. It was influencing new directors and how they wanted to make their movies. It was influencing music at the time. Like, it was just this big cultural bomb that was detonating all over the place. And that movie was the one and only Trainspotting. After reading that article, I was like, I have to see this movie. Now, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and at our local theaters, we didn't get movies like Trainspotting there. So I never got to see it in its theatrical run. But I made damn sure that I knew when it was coming out on video to rent. So I think the day that it came out, I was right there. Like, they're letting me into the store and I'm like, do you have Trainspotting? And I ended up watching it that day. And Trainspotting is one of the very few examples of me watching a movie and then immediately when it's done, rewinding the movie and watching it all over again. I have very rarely done that in my life, but Trainspotting is the biggest example. I was blown away by it. It's another movie where every single thing works. Cats, hey. There are cats fighting now while I'm making a video. But everything about Trainspotting, the cast, phenomenal. Again, the soundtrack, phenomenal. What Danny Boyle did in directing this movie and just the choices he made in making them. Like, the novel Trainspotting that it's based on is a great book, but he somehow transcended the source material to make an amazing film. And that's a very rare thing. More often than not, it's always, well, the book was better. But in this case, Trainspotting, the movie is, I think it's better than the book. That's just my honest opinion. But no, I was blown away by it. And this movie, throughout the rest of my high school years, going into college, I was enamored with this. I had a Trainspotting poster up in my dorm room in my freshman year of college. I had the soundtrack. I had the book. I had everything. If it had Trainspotting on it, I had it. And Criterion released this. This is a phenomenal edition of this movie. If you love it, if you haven't seen it, watch it no matter what, because it's a great movie. Okay, the next movie is one of the more recent ones that I immediately fell in love with this movie when I saw it. There was a sense like you were watching a documentary as opposed to a movie that was scripted and that is being told by actors. Movies like that, where they just feel 100% natural, are very rare. I think, there's a couple of examples. Like, if you look at Martin Scorsese's first movie, Mean Streets, it has that feel where it doesn't really feel like you're watching actors acting. It feels like the camera's just following this group of people as they're doing stuff. Another example of that would be a movie called Killer of Sheep that came out in the 70s that follows a man and his wife and these people that live in a neighborhood in Watts in California. And again, there's no sense that people are acting. It just feels like a camera's capturing real people doing real things. This next movie has that. And that is The Florida Project. Whew. This movie is phenomenal. It is the story of a single mother and her daughter, Mooney, who live in this really tiny, kind of gaudy motel in Florida. And they are actually just a few blocks down the road from Disney World. And the hotel, or the motel itself, has this color. It's like this pink color going on all over it. And the movie's really about those two. The movie mainly follows Mooney around, like kind of on her daily adventures as she plays with the other kids that are living in the motel, as she goes kind of exploring into things. And Mooney is a little force of nature. She loves getting into trouble. She loves getting into things. And the only recognizable actor that you'll notice in the movie is Willem Dafoe. And he plays the guy that manages the motel. And he likes to think that he's one of those big, gruff, in charge dudes. But as the movie progresses, you realize this guy's got a huge heart. And he's just a really stand-up guy. But nothing about the Florida Project feels like you're watching a movie. The only time you're reminded of that is when you see Willem Dafoe come bopping into the movie. Normally when you have movies where the predominant characters are kids, more often than not, you kind of are reminded that you're watching child actors because they just seem like they're acting. None of the kids in this movie ever for a second feel like they are acting. Sean Baker, who you may be familiar with because he went on to win the Oscar for his movie Anora, this movie is like lightning in a bottle. You could never replicate it because all the performances are so natural. They felt like they were caught on the fly. You could never reproduce that. And it's got such a phenomenally heart-wrenching ending. I can't say enough good things about it. This huge edition that I have is from Second Sight. They make incredible limited editions of these movies. And when they announced this, I was like, okay, yeah, this is day one for that. And the next and final movie that I'm going to talk about is actually another Second Sight edition that I have. I am a horror fan. I absolutely love horror movies. It's my favorite genre. I don't know. I could go into that for days, but my favorite horror movie of all time, which, funny enough, is not The Lost Boys. Like, I love The Lost Boys, obviously, because it's my favorite movie of all time, but I can't say that The Lost Boys is my favorite horror movie of all time. I can make that distinction because I'm a nerd. No, my favorite horror movie of all time is the one and only Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a classic. It's a movie that, for all intents and purposes, should have just kind of come and gone as like a gritty little grindhouse flick. But there was something about it. There was something about it that resonated with people, that made people so uncomfortable that they had to talk about it and they had to get other people to see it. So because of that, the movie's popularity and interest in the movie just snowballed, and it became one of the classic horror movies of all time. Tobe Hooper really did make a very gritty film. He shot it in the summer of 1973 in Texas, while there was this like immense heat wave going on. You feel every degree of that heat just baked into the film itself. It just feels sun bleached. Like, it feels like there's sweat that has dried into the reels of this movie. There's been so many things said about it. I don't really know what is a new thing to say about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Why is it my favorite horror movie of all time? Again, I could give you 1,000 reasons, but I think probably the biggest one is that it's a movie where your choices have consequences. That is probably one of the biggest lessons of this movie. Because, most horror movies, you have a main character, and at some point they start being stalked by a killer or a monster or whatever, and they're never given any choice. They're just suddenly they are being stalked by this thing. And that concept is terrifying because you have no choice. But to me, the thing that would really mess me up is realizing once I get into a situation that is unlike anything I've ever experienced, and it's terrifying and it's disturbing, what would mess me up is the idea that I had a choice of whether or not I could be in this situation, and I chose to be in this situation. When you watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so many of these characters just walk into their doom. You know, like there's no stalking going on for the majority of the movie. These characters decide that they're going to go to this farmhouse to ask for gas, or they're looking for their friends. And instead of just minding their business, they walk into this house. You know, all right, I'm going to open the door and just walk right on in. And that's when they end up meeting Leatherface. And yeah, I can't think of another movie right now off the top of my head where the characters are faced with that consequence. That, man, if only I hadn't done this, I would be going on about my business. I would be living to see tomorrow. But no, it's a phenomenal film. It's a movie that gets such a interesting reputation for being insanely violent and gory, and it's really not. There is very little blood actually seen in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You will find more violence and gore and viscera in a single episode of like CSI or Bones than you will in the entirety of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, this is a Second Sight edition. I told you, man, they make these chunky boy editions that are beautiful. And this is a 4K of Texas Chainsaw. And at the time, it was kind of like, well, I want to get it because it's my favorite horror movie of all time, but do I want the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to be cleaned up? Like, do I want it to look good? Because isn't that kind of part of the appeal of the movie? And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that 4K is amazing. I never thought that I would say this about this movie, but the colors pop. You know, I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And it doesn't detract from the feel of the movie, which I love that aspect as well. So, yeah, those are just 4 of my favorite movies. I could keep going for days. But this is just a small taste of, like I said, the movies I love, who I am as a person, and all those wonderful things that you've been dying to know about me, I'm sure. So once again, thank you for letting me talk to you. I can't wait to talk to you again. So I'll see you soon. I hope you have a phenomenal, phenomenal day.